Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the LionBee from Newbie Drone. This is a development kit, as they call it. A long-range development kit, I think is what they specifically say on their website. And this does come in parts, so you do have to assemble. You have to do some soldering for your motors onto your wires, and you do have to turn a screwdriver or hex driver in order to get everything together. But Newbie Drone, on their page for this product, as well as their YouTube channel, has an assembly guide for this, which is pretty good. The only thing is, mine was missing a bunch of 4mm screws, which I think is typical from the review kits that were sent out. And this did come out several weeks ago, but I'm just now getting around to it. The key to this is kind of this little compartment right here, where you pop in a simple 18650 cells. I am going to be flying the Newbie Drone approved and branded 18650 cells. So 18650 is a dramatic different flying experience than our typical LiPo FPV drones, and that's something we'll talk quite a bit about. The key specs: we have the BI camera from Newbie Drone. This all-in-one flight controller does have lights on both this side as well as this side, and you can see my solder joints on there. It does have the GPS module. This all-in-one flight controller does have your Express LRS receiver, as well as a 400 milliwatt VTX with Smart Max, which should help keep that VTX from overheating itself. They also have reverse polarity protection, so it doesn't matter which way you put the battery in. If you just plop it in, which I got it lucky on the first shot, it comes right up. But if you plug it in the other way, no magic smoke. So that is a great sight for sore eyes there, because that's something we normally have blow up in our faces quite often. The motors are 11,420 kV motors that are the Newbie Drone flow motors, and those motors, as you can see there, are 1202s, and on those motors are Gemfan Hurricane 3020 props. It does come with a fairly fancy little guide here as far as putting everything together, so you don't have to watch the video. They've got this guide. It weighs 66.23 grams on my scale. With the Newbie Drone 3000 milliamp 18650, it weighs 114.17 grams. And motor post to motor post, I'm getting about 132 millimeters. Carbon fiber is 2.5 millimeters thick. And while I had some extra parts when I was done putting it together, I didn't get any stickers. The weather on this day is 62 degrees, so not too bad for February. I think this is February. It could have been very late January. Hard for me to keep track because I've been trying to fly this thing under a number of different circumstances. You can see the sun's kind of low, so this is a relatively late in the afternoon, probably about 4 o'clock flight. It is on the weekend, and the winds are 8 miles an hour. I mentioned the winds because you are going to see it bobble around. I've pretty much always got wind, so that's something I have to cope with. It's very rare it gets down into like 5 or less miles an hour. Of course, it's not as bad during the spring and summer when you have greenery on everything to help knock it down. You can see on the pool cover quite a bit of water from a snow melt-off that we had. If you remember my last video, the Whoop video, we had about, somewhere between 6 and 8 inches of snow. And that took a while to melt off. We had a couple of 60-degree days that did a lot of good. But you can still see, well, if you were up front, you could still see some snow piles. You can see there's quite a bit of water in this particular flight. I am going to freestyle-ish that and share that with you. I can note that the GPS, as far as I'm concerned, works normally, and it got satellites pretty quick, but I never saw more than 10, and I only saw 10 at one flight. Like right at the end of the flight, 10 satellites flashed up for just a moment. So that could just be something specific to this GPS in my area, but it did get satellites pretty quick. I would say in under 2 minutes. It had, on the first flight, it had a number of satellites. You've got to have 8 satellites the way this is set up with GPS Rescue before Betaflight will allow you to arm and take off. So that 2-minute wait, at most a 2-minute wait, at least in my area, was all I had to experience, which isn't too bad. I've seen many other GPSs take longer. And you can see as the wind kind of comes up, and maybe you can even hear it on my flight audio camera, this bobbles around, it moves around, it makes it a little bit hard to hold your line. So considering the wind in your area or wherever you might fly, that is going to be a high consideration. This is, a long range. They tend to be more efficient. They try to fly for as long as possible. And speaking of fly as long as possible, on the Newbie Drone batteries, I got about 17.5 minutes on average discharging down to around 3.1 volts. Then I would disarm at that point, and then the voltage would creep back up just a little bit. But when it comes to changing The speed of the prop, which we need all the time in quads, whether we're turning or whatnot. You just don't have the responsiveness. The 18650 cells are not fast discharge rate cells. That's one of the big components of our lithium polymer batteries, is you can really discharge them quickly. So when you make a demand of the motor through the ESC flight controller, that battery, the lithium polymer, can give that to you, where you just can't quite get as much out of lithium ion. That's part of my struggle when I try to actually freestyle light it. I don't get after it very hard, but I did want to show you that even at only 8 miles an hour on the wind, from time to time when it gets up to 8 miles an hour, it gets on the quad, it does bobble around. Again, it does fly for 17.5 minutes for me on the 18650 cells from Newbie Drone. You may have others that you can try out that maybe you get even more. Here's my freestyle flight. You saw it go from 7 to 8 there on the satellites. It flashes, and that kind of indicates, yep, you're ready to arm. Otherwise, if you arm before you get 8 satellites, it will give you a warning on screen. Like, it's GPS warning. It's pretty hard to see, at least with this particular camera. But you can see there a full punch. Didn't look horrible, but that's not, not great. It didn't really climb. It took a minute to get the props up to speed, and I'm going to try to do a little power loop there, and of course prop wash. That's I kind of expected it, but I always want to experience these things for myself and then kind of show them to you, so that you get an idea of what you can expect out of these products. And sure enough, yeah, I had a crash, and I was very worried, even though that was a minor crash, that I broke it. But thankfully I didn't, so I was able to go get it after a short line of sight to where I could verify that the quad was okay, because it looked okay, but I just wanted to fly it. I flipped the goggles down. You can see I take right off. I would still call this a flat flyer, even if you want to fly it flat more aggressively. You can see I did turn up the camera angle. You can see the canopy in the top right and the top left-hand corners. So that's something else to notice, that I didn't really crank up the camera angle all that much, and the canopy starts to come into view. Again, that's, it's not designed for this, so that's kind of not unexpected, but it's something that when you're paying money for stuff, you want to have as much information as you can about a particular quad. And as you get deeper into the battery when you're trying to fly, even if you're just doing flat flying, the responsiveness changes, and that's not unusual for lower voltage quads. I could say the same things about our whoops. When you get down to the bottom of the battery, when the voltage gets way low, you're higher on the throttle to do the equal things that at a higher voltage on their battery you could do without being so high on the throttle, pitch, roll, yaw. All of them, they just respond different, lower, less than if you were on a freshly charged battery. And so that's something that really stands out. And I'm probably spending more time than I should, but I wanted to give you enough time to see my next crash, and then we reset and we go for some more. I did have a reset during one of these crashes. That's why you see the flight time stay relatively low after we've seen more flight time than that. But again, do my customary flips and rolls. If you dead stick it, as you saw there a few times, dead stick meaning you go hard back to center, you don't finesse it, you do get quite a bit of bounce back. Not unexpected to me, but I wanted to make sure that was clear to anyone who might be looking at this particular product, that it's just not made for acrobatic or fast maneuvers. You can fly fast, but it's going to need to be kind of smooth fast, kind of like doing NASCAR turns like I've been kind of doing here around the yard. At the end of this flight, we won't stick around for it, but at the end of this flight, I get to the point where I'm making turns where I'm at 100% throttle. And that's just how it is when you have something like this that's running off of lithium-ion batteries. So as far as the construction goes, my only concerns are kind of the same concerns when it comes to this sort of design, is that when you're screwing into carbon fiber over time, does it kind of wallow out, especially with crashing, and then things start to get loose or just get disconnected, or you lose the screws to them. And as you can see here, we've got all these screw holes here. We go up here, but we go down, 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 down into the carbon fiber. So we have all those screws that could potentially wallow out, and over time, there's really nothing you could do. You might be able to do something with like thread and super glue to kind of fill the gap, of course, with the screw out and then put the screw back in. There may be other remedies. That's just one off the top of my head that seems like it could work. Also note that these are push-on props. No prop screws are necessary. I flew it the entire time without using any prop screws. Didn't have any problems with props flying off. I mention that because sometimes we get concerned when there's no prop screws. Sometimes when the motor stems are designed right and we have a good fitting prop, that's not an issue. Other times, it can be an issue. Putting this together wasn't very hard. You know, it's got an all-in-one. You have to be prepared, as I mentioned in the opening that you need to do some soldering for all the motor wires. And they walk you through that. They walk you through the Betaflight setup. They walk you through reversing motor direction if you need to. They walk you through putting on your props. High side always leads the rotation. That's how you create thrust. So this is the high side. This is the low side. The motor spins this way on this particular side and motor position. So you can see here on this, high side is here, low side is here, motor rotates this way. So you need to make sure you have your motor rotation down right. Don't do the motor rotation testing or setup with props on, of course. Put the props on last after you've got everything set up and configured just like you like. I did find crashes kind of kept my, it kind of did in my antenna stick or holder here, but kind of expected again. A lot of these things are expected, but I'm going to draw them out in case they're not expected for anyone who might be watching. Putting these screws into this 3D print was way harder than I expected. I kind of felt like I needed to get one of my micro drill bits out and kind of ream the holes. So when you're assembling yours, if you get one, do expect that to be really kind of a struggle. You really have to press hard on both the hex driver side as well as pressing down pretty hard. And of course, lining up the hole is important, but even when you get the hole lined up, really got to grunt that thing in. So something else to note, it wasn't too bad on any of these other carbon fiber where the screw went into the carbon fiber, but that one sticks out in my mind even here weeks after putting this thing together. Don't do what I did. That's the last thing I wanted to. I did not intend for this to be sticking out. That's kind of bad because of, any possible crashes that I get something that pops that off and I don't notice it. Could create damage, and that's your VTX antenna. It needs to be on there for grounding and heat dissipation. I intended when I put this together to have that rotated in, but somehow through fussing with everything, I got that in the wrong position and didn't notice until I'd already started flying. And I thought, well, maybe I'll suffer from my lack of attention to detail, and that will be another lesson that I can bring to the video. So to wrap up, I think the person that's going to be interested in this has probably either already got a lot of 18650 cells, lithium-ion batteries, or they're just interested in flying with these for some other reason, and you don't mind putting stuff together. Everything else is taken care of for you by Newbie Drone as far as flight configuration. You do have to set your modules or switches on your radio just as you would any quad to make sure that they are functional and set to the switches as you expect them to be set to, and make sure your channel map for your radio matches how Betaflight is set up. Those are kind of normal setup things, but as far as PID tuning, all those other things, the motor direction, my recollection is if you solder them on in series and you don't cross any of them, I think that's how they have Betaflight set up with the ESC configuration in order to make sure the motors rotate as they intended them to. I think. Again, it's been a couple weeks since I put this together, but it's a cruiser, and you want the added peace of mind for the GPS rescue, which you can get with really any quad that runs Betaflight, but they've already got it built in for you right here. It's not something I would recommend if you're wanting to even learn freestyle, really, because this is going to make it probably a little bit harder than it might otherwise. So it is going to be more of explorer or even long range. Remember, for long range, if you're new to long range, don't just jump in and send it as far as it goes. That'll be the only flight you ever have. Take your time, read, watch, learn about other people who do long range. I won't say anything here because I'm by far not an expert on that. But this is the Newbie Drone LionBee developer kit from Newbie Drone, and it comes in at $159.99. So in today's pricing schemes, not terrible if you're interested in something like this. If you are interested, I'll put a link to it down in the video description. Otherwise, just go to newbiedrone.com and type in their search bar LionBee, and it'll pull this little guy up if you do want to look at more information about it as well as actually purchase. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.